My name is Khalid. I am 34 years old, a Saudi royal guard for 12 years. On March 23rd, 2016, I died for 8 minutes during a heart attack at the royal compound in Riyadh. What I experienced in those 8 minutes changed everything I believed about God, truth, and eternity. For 12 years, I served as a royal guard, protecting Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and the Saudi royal family. My grandfather fought with King Abdulaziz during the unification of our kingdom. My father served in the National Guard for 30 years. Military service and devotion to Islam flowed through my bloodline like the oil beneath our desert sands. I was born in Najd province, the heartland of our Wahhabi faith. From childhood, I memorized Quranic verses with the same discipline other boys learned football. By age 16, I had committed half the Quran to memory. My voice carried across our neighborhood mosque during evening prayers, and the Imam often praised my recitation of Surah Al-Baqarah. Every morning at 4:30, I performed Fajr prayers before dawn training exercises. Physical fitness and spiritual discipline merged into one sacred routine. I earned marksmanship medals and commendations for unwavering loyalty. My fellow guards respected my dedication. Officers trusted me with the most sensitive security assignments because I never compromised my principles. My wife Fatima bore me two sons, Ahmed and Omar. Ahmed was 8 years old, already learning to read Arabic script. Omar, 5 years old, would mimic my prayer postures with innocent devotion. Every evening after returning from the royal compound, I gathered my family for Maghrib prayers. We recited verses together, their small voices joining mine in worship of Allah. I despised Western influence creeping into our society. Hollywood movies, pop music, and liberal ideas threatened our pure Islamic culture. Christianity especially disgusted me because I believed it corrupted the true message brought by Prophet Jesus. The Trinity made no sense. How could God have a son? How could the Eternal One die on a cross? These Christian doctrines contradicted everything rational about monotheism. During state ceremonies, I observed foreign diplomats and their wives dressed immodestly. I watched Western journalists asking inappropriate questions about human rights and religious freedom. In my heart, I thanked Allah for protecting our kingdom from such spiritual corruption. I believed we Saudis were the guardians of true faith, the keepers of Mecca and Medina. Yet despite my perfect religious performance, peace eluded me. After completing all 5 daily prayers, after reciting countless verses, after fulfilling every Islamic obligation, my soul remained restless. I wondered if Allah truly heard my supplications. I questioned whether my good deeds outweighed my sins. The concept of divine mercy felt abstract and distant. Nightmares about death haunted my sleep. I dreamed of the grave questioning, where angels Munkar and Nakir would interrogate my faith. I feared the day of judgment when my deeds would be weighed on cosmic scales. Despite my devotion, I had no assurance of paradise. Uncertainty gnawed at my spirit like desert wind eroding stone. My chest began experiencing sharp pains during intense security exercises. The symptoms started 3 months before my death. Pride prevented me from seeking medical attention. Real men endured pain silently. Besides, my duty to protect the royal family superseded personal comfort. I convinced myself that Allah would preserve my health as long as I served faithfully. Fatima noticed my increasing fatigue and urged me to visit a doctor. During our final conversation, she gripped my hands with worried eyes and made me promise to get examined. I assured her that Allah protected those who protected His servants. I told her not to worry because my faith would shield me from harm. Now I understand that Allah was indeed protecting me, but not in the way I expected. He was preparing me for an encounter that would shatter every assumption I held about God, truth, and salvation. My religious devotion had become a beautiful prison, and death would be the key to my liberation. Ask yourself this question. Have you ever performed every religious duty perfectly yet still felt spiritually empty inside? March 23rd, 2016 began like any ordinary day of royal service. The spring sun cast long shadows across the marble courtyard of the King Abdulaziz Conference Center in Riyadh. Our security team was escorting a high-level delegation meeting between Crown Prince Mohammed and visiting ministers from the Gulf Cooperation Council. I had completed my morning prayers with extra devotion, sensing something significant approaching without understanding what. At precisely 2:17 in the afternoon, while conducting a final security sweep of the conference hall's marble corridors, a crushing pain exploded across my chest. The sensation felt like a concrete block dropping onto my ribs from a great height. My left arm went completely numb. Sharp needles of agony shot down my spine. I gasped for air, but found none. My knees buckled against the polished floor. The ornate Islamic calligraphy decorating the walls began spinning like a carousel. Fellow guards rushed toward me, their voices echoing strangely, as if coming from underwater. I heard Captain Ahmad shouting into his radio for immediate medical assistance. The cold marble pressed against my cheek as consciousness began slipping away like sand through fingers. My final earthly thought was the Shahada, the declaration of faith every Muslim recites. La ilaha illa Allah, wa Muhammadun Rasul Allah. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is His messenger. These sacred words had comforted me through every trial of my adult life. Now they accompanied me into death with familiar reassurance. Then came the most extraordinary sensation of my existence. My consciousness separated from my physical body like steam rising from hot tea. I found myself floating near the ceiling, looking down at my own motionless form sprawled on the marble floor. My face appeared peaceful, almost serene, but completely gray and lifeless. Captain Ahmad and 3 other guards knelt beside my body, performing CPR with desperate efficiency. I watched Ahmad pressing rhythmically on my chest while reciting verses from the Quran. Another guard tilted my head back, breathing air into my lungs. Their movements seemed synchronized, almost choreographed, yet frantic with urgency. Someone had called Fatima on the emergency phone. I heard her voice through the speaker, crying and reciting verses from Surah Al-Baqarah, the chapter about the cow. Her beautiful voice cracked with emotion as she pleaded with Allah to spare her husband's life. The sound of my children crying in the background pierced my floating consciousness more than any physical pain ever could. Paramedics arrived within minutes, their equipment spreading across the floor like mechanical prayer rugs. They attached electrodes to my chest and injected medications into my arm. The heart monitor displayed a flat green line, accompanied by that terrible beeping sound that means death. Yet I felt no fear, no panic, only profound curiosity about what would happen next. During my Islamic education, I had learned that the angel of death, Azrael, comes to collect souls at their appointed time. The deceased soul then faces questioning in the grave by angels Munkar and Nakir. Faithful Muslims cross the bridge over hell and enter paradise. This sequence of events had been drilled into my mind since childhood like multiplication tables. But nothing I experienced matched those teachings. Instead of encountering stern angels with scrolls of judgment, I felt a powerful yet gentle force drawing my consciousness upward. The sensation resembled being pulled by invisible strings toward a brilliant light source above the hospital ceiling. The physical world below began fading like a television program slowly losing signal. The light approaching from above radiated warmth, more comforting than my mother's embrace, more peaceful than desert nights under starlit skies. This luminous presence felt alive, personal, infinitely loving. Every fear I had ever carried about death dissolved in its glow. I sensed movement through space and time, traveling vast distances in mere moments. Look inside your own heart right now and ask yourself, when your final moment comes, what do you hope will meet you on the other side? The brilliant light enveloped my consciousness like warm honey, drawing me through what seemed like an infinite tunnel. Golden radiance cascaded around me, more magnificent than the desert sun at noon, yet gentle enough to behold without pain. I traveled through this luminous pathway with impossible speed, covering distances that felt both instantaneous and eternal. The sensation defied every law of physics I understood. I expected to arrive at the gates of Jannah, the paradise described in Islamic texts, with its rivers of milk and honey, its gardens beneath which rivers flow. Instead, I found myself in a realm that transcended physical description. The space around me pulsed with living light, neither day nor night, but something entirely beyond earthly categories. The atmosphere breathed pure love, more tangible than oxygen, yet invisible to any natural sense. Without warning, scenes from my entire life began materializing around me, like three-dimensional movies projected into the air. I witnessed my childhood in Najd province, playing with wooden swords while dreaming of military service. I observed my teenage years memorizing Quranic verses, driven more by pride than genuine devotion. Every moment of my 34 years unfolded with perfect clarity and devastating honesty. The Life Review revealed not just my actions, but their consequences rippling through other lives like stones thrown into still water. I experienced the emotional impact of my choices from the perspective of everyone I had affected. When I saw myself harshly disciplining younger soldiers during training exercises, I felt their humiliation and fear as if it were my own. The pain I had dismissed as necessary, toughening, now burned in my spirit like acid. I watched myself treating Pakistani and Bangladeshi workers with contempt, viewing them as inferior beings created to serve Saudis. In this supernatural replay, I experienced their dignity being crushed under my arrogance. I felt the sting of every dismissive word, every condescending gesture. The shame overwhelmed me more completely than physical torture ever could. Scenes of my marriage appeared with uncomfortable precision. I observed moments when I had spoken harshly to Fatima, dismissing her concerns as female weakness. I witnessed my impatience with Ahmed and Omar when they interrupted my prayers or disturbed my rest after long security shifts. Through their young eyes, I saw myself as a distant father, present in body but absent in heart. Most painful of all, I watched myself mocking Christians and Jews, calling them kafir, unbelievers destined for hellfire. I had spoken with such certainty about their spiritual blindness, such confidence in their eternal damnation. The hatred I had cultivated toward followers of Jesus now reflected back at me like light bouncing off a mirror, revealing the ugliness of my own heart. A voice began speaking in perfect classical Arabic, more beautiful than any Quranic recitation I had ever heard. The tone carried infinite patience, boundless compassion, yet absolute authority. Every word resonated through my being like music composed specifically for my soul. Khalid, the voice said, do not be afraid. Terror and confusion battled within my consciousness. This gentle voice did not match the stern judgment I expected from Allah. Where was the weighing of my deeds on cosmic scales? Where were the angels recording my sins and good works? The voice knew every hidden corner of my heart, yet spoke with love rather than condemnation. Who are you? I managed to ask, though I had no physical mouth to speak. Where is Allah? I performed my religious duties faithfully. I prayed 5 times daily. I memorized your holy book. The response shattered every theological foundation I had built my life upon. You served faithfully, Khalid, but you never truly knew me. You knew about me from books and teachings, but you never experienced my heart. My defenses crumbled like sand castles before ocean waves. But I prayed constantly. I fasted during Ramadan. I gave alms to the poor. You performed religious rituals perfectly, the voice replied with infinite tenderness. But religion cannot save your soul. Perfect performance means nothing without genuine relationship. Now ask yourself this question. Have you built your faith on knowing about God or on actually knowing God personally? The brilliant light began condensing, taking the shape of a human figure before my astonished consciousness. What emerged defied every expectation I had carried about divine encounters. A man appeared, clothed in radiant white robes that seemed woven from pure light itself. His features were unmistakably Middle Eastern, with olive skin, dark hair, and a beard that framed a face radiating infinite compassion. His eyes burned like fire, yet contained such overwhelming love that I felt completely known and completely accepted simultaneously. When I looked at his hands, I saw scars, perfectly healed but clearly visible. The same marks appeared on his feet. My Islamic training immediately identified these wounds, though my mind recoiled from the implications. Khalid, he spoke, his voice carrying the authority of creation itself. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Terror flooded my being. Every doctrine I had believed, every sermon I had heard, every verse I had memorized screamed that this encounter was impossible. But I am Muslim, I protested. I follow Islam. You cannot be God. The Quran teaches that Allah has no son. His response came with such gentleness that it broke my heart. I died for you too, my son. Those words detonated in my consciousness like spiritual dynamite. Everything I had been taught about Jesus crashed against this moment of direct encounter. Islamic theology insisted that Jesus was merely a prophet, that Christians had corrupted his message, that the crucifixion never happened. Yet here stood the man himself, bearing the wounds of execution, claiming divinity with absolute authority. The Quran says you were never crucified, I stammered. It says Allah made it appear so. But you were raised to heaven without dying. Jesus gazed at me with eyes that held eternity. Muhammad wrote those words 600 years after my resurrection, Khalid. He never met me personally. You are meeting me now. He extended his scarred hands toward me, and suddenly I was experiencing the crucifixion from his perspective. I felt the nails piercing flesh, the weight of humanity's sin pressing down like mountains, the separation from the Father as darkness covered the earth. But more than the physical agony, I experienced his love for every person who would ever live, including me. I willingly laid down my life, he explained as the vision continued, not just for those who would believe easily, but for those who would deny me, persecute my followers, and reject my love. I died for Muslim hearts as much as Christian hearts. I died for Saudi souls as much as American souls. The revelation shattered my theological framework completely. I had spent years despising Christianity as a Western religion, a foreign corruption of pure monotheism. Yet here was Jesus, clearly Middle Eastern, clearly Jewish, speaking Arabic with perfect fluency. He was not Western at all. He was more Middle Eastern than I was. Every knee will bow, he continued, and every tongue will confess that I am Lord. That includes Muslim knees and Muslim tongues. The question is whether you will acknowledge me now, in love, or later, in judgment. I fell to my knees, or whatever constituted knees in that spiritual realm. Waves of unconditional love washed over me like warm ocean currents. Every question I had ever carried about God's mercy, every doubt about divine love, every fear about acceptance melted away in his presence. The peace I had searched for through countless prayers, through perfect religious performance, through rigid obedience to Islamic law, I found completely in this single moment. Forgive me. I wept without tears. I denied you. I mocked your followers. I believed lies about you. Jesus placed his scarred hand on my forehead, and I felt forgiveness flowing through me like healing water. You are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Your past is erased. Your sins are remembered no more. The transformation was instantaneous and complete. Where religious duty had once driven my spiritual life, love now reigned supreme. Where fear of judgment had motivated my prayers, gratitude now overflowed from my heart. Look inside your own heart right now and ask yourself, what if everything you have believed about Jesus is wrong? What if he truly is who he claims to be? Jesus looked into my eyes with infinite tenderness and spoke words that would reshape my entire existence. You will return now, Khalid. Your time on earth is not finished. You must tell others about my love. The prospect of returning to my physical body filled me with conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to remain in his presence forever, basking in perfect love and peace. Yet I understood that he was commissioning me for a purpose greater than my own comfort. The weight of that calling both thrilled and terrified me. Lord, I asked, how can I speak of you in Saudi Arabia? They will arrest me, torture me, execute me for abandoning Islam. My own family will disown me. The religious police will hunt me down like a criminal. His response carried both comfort and challenge. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Many in your nation hunger for the peace you have found. Plant seeds of my love wherever I send you. Trust me with the harvest. Before I could ask more questions, I felt my consciousness being drawn back toward earth with tremendous speed. The brilliant realm faded like a dream at dawn, but Jesus' presence remained with me, surrounding me like invisible armor. His love had become part of my very essence, woven into the fabric of my soul. My eyes opened to the sterile white ceiling of King Faisal Specialist Hospital. Machines beeped steadily around my bed. A ventilator had been removed from my throat, leaving my voice raspy and weak. The first face I saw belonged to Dr. Abdullah, the cardiologist, whose expression mixed professional amazement with genuine bewilderment. Subhanallah, he whispered, shaking his head. Your heart stopped for 8 minutes. We shocked you 4 times. According to medical science, you should have severe brain damage or be dead. Yet here you are, completely normal. I tried to speak but could only croak. A nurse brought me water and gradually my voice returned. What day is it? I managed to ask. March 23rd, evening. You collapsed this afternoon at the conference center. Your wife is in the waiting room. She has been praying constantly since the ambulance brought you here. The mention of Fatima filled me with both joy and sorrow. Joy because I would see her again. Sorrow because I could never tell her the complete truth of what I had experienced. In Saudi Arabia, converting from Islam to Christianity is punishable by death. Even suspicion of such apostasy could result in imprisonment, torture, and execution. When Fatima entered the room with Ahmed and Omar, their faces streaked with tears, I felt my heart breaking and healing simultaneously. They rushed to my bedside, covering me with kisses and praise to Allah for my recovery. Fatima's eyes searched mine with the intuition that wives possess, sensing something profound had changed in her husband. You look different, she said quietly after the children had fallen asleep in visiting chairs. Your eyes are peaceful in a way I have never seen before. I wanted to tell her about Jesus, about the love that had transformed my soul, about the truth that had set me free. Instead, I squeezed her hand and said, Allah has shown me great mercy, Habibti. I understand His love now in ways I never did before. Over the following days, I tried desperately to resume my normal Islamic practices. I attempted to perform the prescribed prayers 5 times daily, but the words felt hollow and mechanical. When I recited Quranic verses that denied Jesus' divinity or his crucifixion, my spirit recoiled as if stung by wasps. The religious rituals that had once provided structure and meaning now felt like empty theater. Late at night, when my family slept, I began secretly researching other people who claimed to have encountered Jesus. The internet revealed countless testimonies from Muslims across the Middle East who had experienced similar visions and conversions. Their stories matched mine with striking consistency, giving me confidence that my experience was genuine rather than hallucination. I discovered websites offering Arabic translations of the Bible, and I downloaded one onto my encrypted phone. Every word felt alive with the same presence I had encountered during my death experience. The Gospel of John especially resonated, particularly Jesus' words, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Now ask yourself this question: if God Himself visited you personally, would you have the courage to follow Him, regardless of the cost? 3 months after my resurrection, the burden of living a double life became almost unbearable. Every morning I watched my reflection in the mirror, seeing a man transformed by divine love, yet forced to hide his true identity like a criminal. The Royal Guard uniform that had once filled me with pride now felt like a costume in a play I no longer wanted to perform. My superiors noticed changes in my demeanor and recommended me for a medical discharge due to ongoing heart complications. The irony was not lost on me that the very death experience which had given me spiritual life was now providing my escape from government service. I submitted my resignation with a mixture of relief and terror, knowing I was stepping into an uncertain future. Through encrypted messaging apps, I made contact with an underground network of Muslim converts to Christianity operating throughout the Gulf region. These brave souls met in secret, sharing resources and supporting each other through the dangerous journey of hidden faith. They taught me how to practice Christianity safely while maintaining an Islamic facade for survival. My first baptism took place in the swimming pool of a Filipino expatriate family who worked for a Western embassy. The moment Brother Manuel lowered me beneath the water, I felt the same brilliant light from my death experience surrounding me like liquid fire. When I emerged, gasping and weeping, I knew beyond doubt that Jesus had claimed me as His own child forever. The house church that welcomed me consisted of Pakistani construction workers, Filipino nurses, Ethiopian housekeepers, and a few other Saudi converts like myself. We met every Friday evening in different locations, sharing communion with bread and grape juice, reading scripture together, and praying for each other's protection. These gatherings became the most precious hours of my week. Jesus began appearing to me in dreams with increasing frequency, providing guidance for major decisions and comfort during times of fear. In one vision, He showed me a map of Jordan and spoke a single word: "Go." I understood this as divine direction to eventually relocate my family to a country where we could worship freely without threat of execution. The transformation in my character became impossible to hide completely. Fatima observed that I no longer lost my temper with the children or spoke harshly about ethnic minorities. My chronic back pain from years of military service disappeared completely without medical treatment. When Ahmed fell seriously ill with pneumonia, I prayed over him in Jesus' name, and he recovered within hours to the amazement of our doctors. One evening, while reading my secret Bible during a security shift, My colleague Captain Ahmad noticed the unusual peace on my face. "Khalid," he said quietly, "you have found something that the rest of us are missing. There is a light in your eyes that was not there before your death." This conversation opened a door for gentle evangelism. Without mentioning Jesus directly, I began speaking about God's personal love, about divine mercy that surpasses human understanding, about peace that transcends circumstances. Ahmad and several other guards started asking deeper spiritual questions, creating opportunities to plant seeds of gospel truth. After 18 months of secret faith, I submitted asylum applications for my family to relocate to Cyprus through a Christian refugee organization. The process required tremendous faith, as we were essentially burning all bridges to our homeland and extended family. When our visas were approved, I knew Jesus had orchestrated our escape. The day we boarded the plane in Riyadh, my heart pounded with fear that religious police might arrest us at the last moment. As the aircraft lifted off Saudi soil, Fatima gripped my hand and whispered, "I do not know what has changed you, husband, but I trust your leadership." Ahmed and Omar pressed their faces to the windows, waving goodbye to the only country they had ever known. Our first Sunday morning in a Cypriot church, I wept openly as we sang worship songs in Arabic without fear of imprisonment. When the pastor invited people to share testimonies, I stood before 200 believers and spoke Jesus' name aloud for the first time in public. The freedom to say his name without whispers felt like breathing pure oxygen after years of suffocation. My friend, maybe you think this testimony is fabricated or exaggerated, but I ask you this question. If you died tonight, do you know with absolute certainty where your soul would spend eternity? Jesus met me, a man who had denied him and mocked his followers, yet he loved me completely. He is calling your name right now through this very story. Will you answer his call and receive the same eternal life he gave to me?